Hello everybody, welcome to our webinar on Turkey's integrated social assistance system. Thank you all of you for joining from all over the world. I see that once again I'm having problems sharing my screen. I don't know if this is something the socialprotection.org team can solve. Somehow when we trial this it works, and then as soon as it's the live broadcast it doesn't. I don't have the option for sharing my screen. I can't see it anywhere. I used to during the training.
Valentina, we are trying to solve it.
Okay, thank you very much. Otherwise, I'll just start. Give me... Fantastic. I now have the option to share my screen. I hope you can see it. Great. So welcome everybody. We've tried to make this at a time that works for people on either side of the ocean as last time. So I know that some of you are either watching us very late at night or very early in the morning. So thanks for that. This is the second webinar in our series. The first one was on Kenya, and we had that a few weeks ago. And we're now looking at Turkey's integrated social assistance system, which was developed quite recently but has achieved pretty impressive levels of virtual integration, and I'm sure you'll be impressed by what they have achieved. This series of webinars is organized by DFAT, the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and by Oxford Policy Management and Development Pathways, and today we have the contribution of Turkey's Ministry of Family and Social Policy, and of course socialprotection.org helping out and supporting us on the logistics and giving us their platform. Before we launch into the webinar itself, I just wanted to give you a bit of background on why and how this webinar was organized. In 2014 we finalized some research on what used to be called single registries, kind of mostly by the literature, and nowadays people are calling them social registries more often, and integrated data and information management for social protection. That research actually kicked off a lot of interest in this topic. We had a large workshop last year where we were lucky enough to have our Turkey representatives together with representatives from 20 other countries worldwide. I hope some of you are listening today. The inputs from that workshop were incredibly useful in getting the ball rolling and understanding what countries were actually achieving, because this is such an ongoing topic. It's kind of moving on as we research it. And those inputs from that workshop led us to try and kind of capitalize on that work that we were doing, and we founded an online community on the topic of social registries and integrated data and information management for social protection. We now have 88 members. A lot of you I know are members of this community. It's hosted by socialprotection.org, and its function is basically to act as a repository on the topic of integration within social protection, and kind of offering a lot of practical information, documents, and ideally slowly we're moving towards a model by which we'll also be facilitating discussions. That hasn't happened a lot yet, but it's increasingly happening. And together with this community, we've also now updated the research that we did in 2014, and we're kind of adding the experiences that we learned from at the workshop, where we've done quite a bit more country analysis. Here I just wanted to give you a taster of our forthcoming paper, which will be launched in a couple of months' time, just to show you how Turkey compares to other countries. The number of households, millions of households registered, is actually in the average, partly because Turkey is a much smaller country compared to, for example, Pakistan and Brazil. But in terms of percentage of population, we have 43% of households registered within the ISAS system. And the number of programs served is quite high, 24 programs in Turkey. Of course, our Senjar and Çalar will be telling you a lot more about this. This is just to give you a sense of the international comparison, and the linkage with other state institutions is incredibly high at kind of 22 direct web service linkages. And again, you'll be hearing about this a lot more. This is just a taster from our upcoming paper. So my main role right now is to introduce you to our speakers. We have Mustafa Senjar Kirimici and Çağlar Çınar, who are both social policy experts within the Ministry of Family and Social Policy in Turkey, and we're very lucky to have them on board today because when they were presenting in Indonesia, everybody was pretty much shocked by what they've been able to achieve in Turkey. We have Richard Çırçır, which will be he'll be quickly discussing kind of the implications for other countries based on the Turkey experience. And Richard joins us from Development Pathways, and I am moderating today. My name is Valentina Barca from Oxford Policy Management. I'd just like to, before I hand over the word to Senjar, I wanted to quickly say that you can kind of throughout the presentations interact with us by submitting your questions to the panel by using the GoToWebinar chat, which you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen. And you could even start by telling us kind of who you are, what countries you're joining us from, what institutions, so that we get a sense of who is participating. And you can submit questions whenever you want, and at the end we'll have a Q&A session where I'll try and summarize some of those questions and ask our attendees for you. So now I am going to be handing over the word to Senjar.
Thank you very much, Valentina. Görebiliyor muyum? Hello and welcome to everybody. My name is Senjar Kirimici. I am from Turkey's Ministry of Family and Social Policies. It's our first experience in webinar. I hope we can easily handle it, but if you have some problems in terms of technical, at start I would like to say sorry. Today I'll try to explain our country's integrated social assistance system, how we use it in the field of social assistances. First, I will start with the background about the Turkish social assistance system, and then I will continue with our integrated social assistance system. How does it work? Who benefits from and how? And I will talk about. I will have little talk about background and timeline. I will talk about challenges, limitations, and future work. And we will try to make live demonstration of our system. Also, my colleague Çağlar will help me. He's a computer engineer, so if you have some technical question, some structural question about the system, please, we will be happy. I think he will be happy for answer them.
I will be happy.
Now, let's continue a little information about our country. As you know, our country located across European and Asian continents at the crossroads. Most of our country in Anatolian part of our country in the continent, and the small part at the European part. We have approximately 78 million for the last year, and our country's GDP was approximately $1.5 trillion in the last year. When we look at the social expenditure and GDP ratio, we see approximately 1.46%. We know it's still low, but especially at last year, in the last 10 years, we increased it. Our investment on the social expenditure increased. So, what are we doing in our ministry? What is our main social assistance programs? First, our main and the most developed program is CCT program. I think it's a globally known program, conditional cash transfer program. We have conditional education and conditional health pillars of this program. In Turkey we have a very well targeted and cash social assistances. Also we have payments for disabled person and for example monthly payments for elderly people. Also we have some in-kind social assistances like food and coal assistances for poor families, poor households. We are calling them also we have some special cash transfer program for vulnerable groups in our society. For example, we have a special designed cash program for women who lost their husbands. As far as I think, as you know, in our society, in our country, when women lost their husbands, permanently they can fall in poverty for the unexpected loss of their husbands. So we are trying to protect them with we are trying to support them with cash transfer programs. Also we have some special designed programs, for example soldier families, for soldier families. In Turkey military service is obligatory, so when the income generating member of the household leave the household for obligatory military service, they can fall into poverty for the absence of him. So we are supporting them with cash programs. All of our programs main purpose is fight against poverty, and all of our programs in our management implemented under the umbrella of our management information system. Now I will talk about it. What is ISAS? ISAS is an management information which enable us to process all social assistance processes in an electronic platform. We have 1,000 local branches across Turkey in district and sub-district level. So all of our local branches use our management information system. We all connected our local branches via VPN secured network. Approximately we have 10,000 users across Turkey using our integrated social assistance system. In working hours, approximately 5,000 users using system, some of them getting applications from our beneficiaries or potential beneficiaries, some of them preparing reports, some of them filling some information about the whole process. System is serving with 17 modules to our purposes, and it have very now we have very powerful welfare inventory, with, which includes approximately 35 million citizens' socio-economic data, from, for example, asset information, demographic information, also another social information. That, we have all of this information in a single database. This 34 million citizen number is equal to approximately 10 million households in our country. It's nearly half of our population. Now let's continue with our systems. Why we created this system? At start, I said one of our main purpose was to transfer. Geliyor değil mi sesim? Is everything clear? Yeah. Ha, okay. Okay. Bu şey açıldı. Sorry for the. Evet, bunu kapatayım. Bunu kapatamıyorum. Çağlar.
Senden biz öyle görmüyoruz. Sen rahat ol.
Şeyi göremiyorum kendim. Sorry for the delay. Okay. Görebiliyorsunuz değil mi Çağlar?
Görüyoruz. Biz gayet iyiyiz.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. Why we created our social assistance? Why we created our integrated social assistance system? First of all, we try to transfer all of our social assistance processes to an electronic platform. To establish welfare inventory and poverty inventory, to establish efficient control and monitoring mechanisms. I will talk about our monitoring and control mechanisms later. And what we are doing with it? We are getting applications. Also, we are making investigations. Also, we can easily track and make payments, monitoring and accounting. Also, for auditing for our inspectors. Şimdi diğer şeye geçmek için. Hı? Nerede?
Normal şey.
Ya. Kullandım. Geçemiyorum.
Tamam, şimdi kullan.
Okay, how does it work? I think integration is the crucial part of our system. We have integration with 22 public institutions in Turkey. We are making this integration web services, mostly web services. Now we have approximately 111 web service established with other governmental institutions in Turkey. For example, for the demographic information and address information, we have integration with the Ministry of Interior's databases. Also, we have integration with Ministry of Health and Education and also Finance. These are very crucial for us because if we don't have correct information about our beneficiaries or applicants, this can be cause some misuses and duplications. So we are connected with other institutions. Also, a special connection with Turkish e-government gateway. In Turkey, we have an e-government gateway, and our citizens can easily sign in this gateway, and so they can make some inquiries. Their works with government. Also, we have some connection with it. our social assistance applicants can easily track their information, their application status or payment amount with this gateway connection. Let's continue with my other slide. How does ESAS work, our system work? We have data collection and updating is very important for us. We have three for data collection. We are collecting data from other governmental databases, as I mentioned, and the second way of data collection for us is on-demand system for application. Our applicants, we have on-demand system in Turkey. Social assistance seekers comes to our local foundations and making their applications and giving some information about their situation. But I would like to say we are cross-checking their given information. Also, we have home visits for applicants at least once a year. It's very important for us because sometimes informal sector bad for us in Turkey. So we have to double check our applications via household visits. Next slide I will try to explain how we change data from data to information, how we make it. I will try to explain also in our live demonstration. Reporting how we use this raw data for reporting, monitoring, eligibility controls. I will try to explain. As I mentioned, we are collecting data for three ways: on-demand application form, household visits, and central database queries from administrative records. And how we classifying data? We have software controls and data before recording, exception handling mechanism. For example, ben chat'i göremiyorum. Chat'i göremiyorum. For example, our local workers cannot enter birth date from 15th centuries. Also, we have some data cross checks, verifying that we are verifying data from multiple resources. Secondary confirmation is crucial for us via household visits. For example, some people come to our social assistance local offices, and they are saying that we are very, very poor and we want to become beneficiary from your CCT program. But when we go to their houses, we see a Mercedes-Benz, for example, in front of their house. So double check with household visits, very important for us. Processing data is also very important for us. We are collecting asset information, demographic information, and what we do with them. For example, we have decision support mechanism for our local offices. We have formula, scoring formula for our local offices. We are saying them this household is not eligible or not, but the final decision is on our local offices. Only we are supporting them. Also, risk assessment works we have. With the rich information, our experts here making some risk assessments using our rich data. Also, we have case referral mechanism. We are plotting it, testing it. Every software substructure is ready for case referral mechanism. Case referral mechanism, case management mechanism. We are trying to connect social assistances to other governmental services. For example, our local officers, when our local officers went to household visits, if they solve some problematic issues, for example, it might be violence against women, maybe alcoholism problem, or maybe there is a child in school age but not attending to school. We are trying to push this information to other governmental databases. Also, we have some visualizations, very different report formats, geographic information system, decision support mechanisms, and simple business intelligence. We are trying to show this in our live demonstration. Now I want to take the screen to my colleague Çağlar. He will talk about some technical information about our system, about how stuffing and hardware and software information. Şimdi nasıl veriyorum?
Şurada screen, show my screen diyenler var ya, onu değiştireceksin. Change presenter vardı en sonunda. Yana doğru git. Dikkatle yanına. Aşağıda biraz.
Hı.
Okay, I got it now, I think.
Açtın mı?
Is that alright? I think yes. Okay, and
Ben şimdi mute yapıyorum.
okay, that's okay, I think. Firstly, I'm Çağlar. My colleague Senja said that. How does this work? First, I want to talk about staffing of the project. During the project phase, we work with 28 software engineers which are contracted with other governmental institutions called TÜBİTAK, Turkish Scientific Research and Turkish Scientific Research and Council, and 12 administrative staff at central level. They are in-house in our ministry. We are these two teams work with together, and our project phase we work with both teams. Now we are on our maintenance period about our projects, and now we are contracted 6 software engineers and 4 software engineers who are in-house in our other departments. And our 5 administrative staff is working on project management side. Now I want to talk about some technical information about integrated social assistance systems. We have 2 systems rooms, 100% virtual and both working as active. And at database layer, we are using 2 machines called Exadata, Oracle Exadata. One of them is X2 and one of them is X3. On application presentation layer, we are using 16 Windows 2008 servers, and on our platform is called J2AE. And our system rooms are, as I said, 100% virtual, and we can easily change the number of our servers or reporting servers or software application servers. And also we are using 4 test servers that are used for just testing and 1 mapping server. My second slide is here, okay. How we are using data privacy, because data privacy is a very important part of our system. There are so many personal identification data on our system. I think about 35 million citizens' data in our system. So we have to secure this data very strongly. At login level, we are using two-factor authentication mechanism, which secured by OTP devices. Two-factor authentication mechanism is called that something you know, something you have. Something you know is your username and password, and something you have part is the OTP devices. OTP devices are one-time password producer devices, which are used on USB port of your computers, and both security levels are authenticated. Then you can join the system. Also, communication security is also important part, because after you enter the system, your data is have to protect with the other internet based attacks. For example, man-in-the-middle attacks. So we are using a virtual private network, and each of our local branch is connected to our system rooms with virtual private networks. Our 2 system rooms security is also important, and this security is both physical and software security is very hardened. System rooms entry is restricted. Only limited users can access the system rooms, and entrance control of the system rooms is using retina scan. Each of the devices are stored in locked cabinets, and these locks can only open by registered users' fingerprints. After retina scan, you have to use your fingerprint to open the cabinets. And each operation is logging. For example, each query on the software is logged by a systems database, and accessing database without the system or restricted size, only 2 users can access database of the system without using the system's user interfaces. One of them is me, and our access is also controlled by another database, and each access of our database level is logged in another database with another system. So no one can easily enter our system's database without logging. Now I am passing to Sencer to screen, if I can. I'm trying. Yes. Here you are, Sencer.
Benim şeyim çıktı mı Çağlar? Gözüküyor değil mi?
Yok, şu anda gözükmüyor.
Gözüküyor muyum Çağlar?
Now, okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Çağlar. Now, who benefits from our system and how? First, I will talk about state, but states are people with state. Our people, state is working for our people, our citizens. We are civil servants, so states benefit also for our citizens benefits from our system. savings on time and resources in delivery of social assistances we have. Neediness, for example, neediness situation inspection decreased from 15 or for 20 days to approximately 1 minute. For example, before our systems, our management information systems, our social assistance applicants are visiting several governmental institutions for proving their neediness situation. For example, they are going to automobile registration office, and then they were going to land registration office. After these systems, they are coming our local offices only with their identification card, including identification number, and we are entering their identification number and checking these information for them from other governmental institutions databases. Also, we have integrated processes and services, for example, payments, case management, etc. With the system, we can easily track and control our payments. So we are blocked misuses and duplicated payments to ghost beneficiaries, for example. Disbursement time shortened. This is very important for us. I think this is very important for social inclusion of vulnerable groups. Before the system, Çağlar and I calculated from our databases for example, disabled payments. Our citizens' waiting time for start of their benefit approximately 6 months or maybe 1 year. But after our systems, we decrease it to
one month
approximately. Also, our other government institutions' workload decreased because social they are not more go to our government offices for some documents, papers. Bureaucracy minimized with this. Also, we have now efficient control and auditing mechanisms. Also, we have reliable statistical information. This is very important for budget planning and decision making for high-ranking officials. In some periods, they want from us some statistical information for the development of new social assistances or the other stuff. So we can easily take information from our system. We can make budget projections with this information, with this data. And our citizens, as I mentioned, their application process shortened and easier. Also, our citizens can easily reach their latest information about their application thanks to our e-government integration and SMS delivery service. Our system automatically sending SMS to our beneficiaries and our social assistance applicants. Also, our SMS delivery service working as a control mechanism. For example, our SMS service sends messages like that. Your money is ready. Its amount is, for example, 100 Turkish lira. You can reach this money to this from PTT offices, our postal service offices. In some cases, some of our citizens calling us. I got some SMS to my handphone saying that your money is ready, but I have no application. So we start investigation. We have started investigation on this occasions, and our investigators went to our local offices. What are you doing? Are there a problem with this? Are there a ghost beneficiary or other stuff? So I think it's a good control mechanism, auto control mechanism for us. Also, with the system, we have our citizens experiencing full automation of payments. We are directly transfer money to their bank accounts, bank account affiliated social assistance card. This card is a special designed debit card. We started with cards with our national PTT service. Okay, 2 million cards delivered to our citizens, to our beneficiaries. They can use these cards in shopping centers, in ATM machines, wherever they want, and also they easily buy their needs from supermarkets, etc. This is a special designed card. Our beneficiaries don't pay extra money for the services, extra fees or etc. Çağlar warned me we have limited time, and now I'm continuing. Now I'm continuing with the background and timeline. We have huge system with, as I mentioned, 17 modules. Our project started with 5 years ago, approximately 2010, and we finished the system at the end of the 15. Total budget was approximately 10 million US dollars. It includes software investment and hardware investment, server rooms and hardware machines, as my colleague Çağlar mentioned. Our module by module with an incremental and flexible method. We have started with our CCT module. We developed it. We have test phase and we used it, and we add other modules incrementally. Current status of our system, now we are in maintenance and continuation contract we have with the developer, Turkish Scientific, our developer partner, Turkish Scientific Research Council. It's governmental, also it's a governmental organization in Turkey too. We made this system in-house in Turkey, all national experts and engineers, and using with our national. I think this is this is the program modules development timeline. As I mentioned, we started conditional cash transfer module, and we finish it with the case management module. Here I can highlight this. For example, we have home care, cash assistance for needy military families module. We have fund committee and directory module. Also we have other modules. Ben tabii şey yapamadım, göremedim. Sorry. Ne kaldı? Okay. Bu son mod şey mi Çağlar'cığım? Last page. Challenges, limitations, and work ahead. Challenges. At start, management of web services. At start, we don't have challenge like this, but when the systems integration grows, as I mentioned, we have 111 web services now with other governmental institutions. So we have to actively manage these web services. For example, Social Security institution changed its web services, so we are services our services came down. So active communication with other government institutions bilgi işlem şeyleri
IT departments.
IT departments is crucial for management of the web services. Naturally, updating system after complicated law changes is very hard thing, because you are designing software for the recent law situation. If there is complicated law change, it's hard for us. At the start point, convincing other government institutions for data sharing is one of our challenges. But when you say, if you give your information to us, your workload will decrease. Yeah, it will be useful for us. They are saying.
We don't write any official papers to you.
Limitations now, server capacity limitations. If you want to grow, if you want bigger system, you have to invest for servers and hardware. Also, if integration become larger, for you have some strong servers, so server capacity is important. What we are planning in future, we are working on BI technologies, business intelligence technologies. Also, we are working geographical information system on, and also we are working on mobile technologies, especially for our household visits. Thank you for now. Now I am jumping to live demonstration of our system. Tabii linkimiz hazır mı? It's a web.
Alttaki. Büyük ve geldi aşağıya.
This is a web-based system. Naturally, I have some sign-in window. I am a General Directorate user, and in our system, every user has some credentials. I have large credentials. I have very good access to all of the properties of our system, but my colleague Çağlar is the
I get larger.
super yetki erişim access to system. He is the only person accessing the raw databases. Okay, I will sign in with my username and password, but our local offices have to use OTP devices for signing. This is my name and surname, and I have password. 10 dakika diyor, değil mi? 10 dakika mı?
Evet, 10 dakika.
Okay, I have 10 minutes. Naturally, our system is in Turkish, so sorry for saying. I try to highlight some part of our system using highlight tool. this part is our communication module to our with our local offices. If we have some important announcement, we can easily share this announcement with our local offices using this screen. For example, also we have here system announcement tab. We can easily we can easily make some system announcements. For example, we are saying that we are updating our system, so you can reach the system for 1 hour. All of these announcements can see by see by all of our users with limited with data also credentials. Also, here we have the main menu about our modules. As I mentioned, we can use our main menu for household search, also for assistance search across Turkey. From this menu, we can easily reach all of our registered households in our system. Also, we can check from here our checklist, payment list. Also, system have human resources module, so we can easily check our local human resource HR
stock management.
Also, from this menu, our local offices can easily reach some education materials for them. For example, of course, they are in Turkish, but they can easily link to our other site, and they can easily download some guidelines for their use.
Help documents, guidelines, and videos. They're also available on system.
Also, we can, our general directorate users can make some statistical search, or they can statistical work on the system. That's all for the main menu. Let's go to continue with our main screen. Here is some duties for our local offices. For example, here's the information about passive household files. For example, this tab about the assignment for our local offices. For example, you have to go these households. For example, there is a miss documents for these households. For example, across Turkey, approximately 2.7 thousand households have some missing documents. So our local offices have to collect these documents. Now, I want to continue with some sample household files. Sorry for the online presentation. In our own live demonstration, we couldn't share online household files because we couldn't share personal information of our beneficiaries in public sources. I think this video will upload to YouTube and etc. So we couldn't share this information, but we prepared some examples of our beneficiaries. So in 5 minutes, I will try to show this. This is my this is the same screen. At the background, you can see my previous live demonstration. Here is the example of the brief information about electronic household file. Here is the small photo of our beneficiary, and here is the address information of this applicant. For example, we are collecting this information from Ministry of Interior's databases. This is automatic field zone part. Also, here is the information who are living in this household. Household, sorry, I mixed it. Household, and the relationship with these people. For example, this is information about the applicant, and the second line, sorry, we couldn't see the name, but the information about her husband. Also, there is living 3 children in this household, their ages and their sexes, for example, girls and boys in the household. All of this information we are collecting from Ministry of Interior's databases. Also, in this field, we are seeing active assistances of this household. For example, this is information about food assistances. Also, in this field, we are seeing active central cash transfer for this household. So, we see that bir şey paylaştık Çağlar. We see that there is 2 conditional cash transfer beneficiary. In this field, we have information about the latest household visit. Also, briefly, we see here Social Security registration and the land registration about this household. Sorry. Now I will continue with another example, another snapshot of our system. Screenshot. Sorry. Yes. This is the brief information about the central database query. We have here we have some special tabs. These tabs about decision support mechanism, household information. Household information means basically means for us how many people lives in this household, what is their ages, what is their relationship between them, and the small information about the assistance status. As you see, here is the brief information about their central database queries. At start Social Security registration, they are working in legal and formal job or not. Here is the health insurance registration. Here is the land registration, and in this part column you can easily see update date of this all of this information. Also, we can easily see from here tax registration, land registration, and income registration for this household. Also, here is the GSM information of this household. Now, the last 2 snapshots from our system. As I mentioned, CCT program is the biggest program for our social assistance system. One of the important assistance in our system. Here is we are seeing information about the conditional transfer of some of our beneficiary. For example, from this part we can see where is this students this students attendee days neydi ya, absence situation, and which school, which grade is this student. Also we can easily see whether this students is active students or not. We are all collecting this information from Ministry of Education databases. Also school attendance is the main rule for our conditional cash transfer program. If we detect some problem in school attendance, our system automatically cuts the payment for this, freeze the payment for this attendee.
Sorry.
Şey yapayım mı? Ne yazdınız oraya?
Biz bir şey yazmadık ya.
And my last spot.
Biraz büyütebilir misin demişti de gerek yok dediler sonra.
As I mentioned, tracking of the payments is very important for us. Thanks to integration with banking payment institutions, our system easily tracks the payments. Centrally, for example, this is a example of payment screen. Some of our conditional cash transfer beneficiary. In this field, we can see the planned payment date. In this date, this means that 28th of March, this beneficiary's money is ready in the bank account. In this field, we can see that this beneficiary took his money 29th of the March from PTT, and also we can see from here that which branch, which ATM machine this beneficiary took his money. Here is the payment period and the amount of this money. This means 25 TL for conditional cash. Thank you for this. Now my presentation finished. Thank you for your attention, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. Now our next presenter, Richard Churcher, will continue. Thank you for all.
Thank you for your attention.
Gittik değil mi? Yoruldum ya.
Thank you, Chala and Mustafa, for that excellent presentation. So mine is just quickly to summarize the key lessons that we can learn from the Turkish model. So I think there are basically about four lessons that we can learn from the Turkish model as presented by Mustafa and Chala. The first one is around building an integrated social protection MIS. What does it actually mean? I think so they've been able to articulate very clearly the fact that there are a number of subsystems which have been built across the government sector, and they're able to interlink. So building an integrated management information system does not mean you need to put in place one super system. In actual sense, I think what is required is to build an integration. It means we need to be able to build databases that effectively talk to each other. ISAS is a very good example of interlinkage between 22 public institution databases. That is extremely impressive. And I think Chala and Mustafa already mentioned the fact that there are plans to be able to link 345 municipalities. Of course, to be able to establish these particular linkages, I think we mentioned in our paper on our research that there will be need for some form of unique ID. And in the case for Turkey, we are talking about the national ID system. The second lesson is, I think they've mentioned the fact quite a number of times. You could see, for example, ISAS is able to do a bit of a linkage to education, to be able to monitor the conditional cash transfer scheme, and they're able to link to Ministry of Health. So what that effectively tells us is that we need to be able to build an electronic government platform. But putting in place an electronic government platform is not very easy in a number of scenarios. There are a number of risks and there are a number of challenges. For example, data privacy, data quality, and data ownership becomes a bit of a challenge to be able to address. So e-government is a very strong enabler of integration, but in most of the cases in a number of developing countries, this is not normally the case because they are still trying to grapple with a number of challenges, a number of issues. But in Turkey, for example, it's a very good example of how an electronic government works and enables integration of social protection management information system. And I think this is exemplified by the fact that you have about 111 web services. That means effectively there are a number of other databases that can be interlinked together using this web service technology, which is just basically an architecture where the software from one software is used to interconnect a number of databases. And I think they mentioned the fact that the current software platform also enables, manages a number of services, conditional cash transfer, health insurance, etc. The third lesson is the phasing of development. You could see, for example, these are very recent integrated MIS system built in 2010, and we are now in 2016. But you could see, for example, they are building the same framework, but in a modular approach. So these are very important points to be able to take home. It means, and you could see effectively that they're able to consolidate a number of core functions. In a number of management information systems, typically there would be what we would call the core operational functions involving, for example, registration, targeting, payments, case management, and complex management. But in the case for Turkey, for example, the 17 modules incorporate non-core functions, for example, accounting and human resource, and they've been able to demonstrate that to us. I think the important thing is when phasing is extremely important, and modular approach is important because it enables the testing and management of different subcomponents. For example, testing about the integration, testing about replication, testing about linkages with the civil registration systems. And I think the other important thing about this particular phase and modular approach is the fact that there would be less risk of failure, especially when there are a number of competing projects being implemented by government. Finally, I think Turkey is a very good example of an excellent match between what I would call the software, the hardware, and the brainware. I think the fact that they've had a bit of a very strong internal software development approach has meant that they've had the flexibility to be able to build modules rapidly without need for retendering, because that could be potentially, for example, a challenge in countries where these particular large-scale MIS projects are implemented. So if you are using a large-scale supplier from outside through the tender process, it means once their contracts come to an end, then you've got potentially, for example, to retender. But I think the fact that they had a very strong internal team means they've been able to make a lot of progress quite rapidly. Then, of course, I think the choice of the software, the hardware, they've mentioned about the Oracle aspect of it, has been very good because they're able now to support over 9,000 service queries from their clients or their beneficiaries, and about 4,500 concurrent users. That's quite impressive. And of course, I think to be able to connect to a number of government departments, I think it needs a lot of strong leadership from the management of the programs. If there's going to be silo mentality, meaning each particular department or sector protect their own data, then the whole aspect of integration will not be achieved. And I think Turkey has a very good example in terms of that element of linking together the software, the hardware, and the brainware, which is so important. Thank you very much. I'm now going to pass the baton to Valentina to continue the next session.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard, for that. I hope you can see my screen now. Thank you to everyone who participated. That was really amazing, both Sanjar and Çağlar. Very fascinating. I mean, I'd heard you speak before, but this was more in depth compared to the past. Because it was so interesting, you've received a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and group them for you very quickly because we don't actually have that much time left. The first set of questions were around how you set up your coordination kind of across ministries and with your local actors and local branches. You mentioned, for example, that your Ministry of Family and Social Policy, which is coordinating this ESA system, kind of part of its success was in demonstrating what was in it for each actor, what was useful for each actor, but would you have any other advice on kind of how you got that level of coordination and get people to share their data, which is not easy? The second group of questions was actually around a peculiarity of your system, which is your integration of operations kind of beyond data collection and targeting, which is actually quite rare. So I'm going to just list a few questions on this integration of operations. From the data collection point of view, there was quite a lot of interest in your on-demand system for data collection and whether you used any external kind of survey, census survey as well, other than the data sharing. So how your on-demand system worked, whether it was electronic, whether your local branches were kind of instantly integrating their data to your system as soon as they were collecting data and doing their home visits, whether these home visits were actually cost effective. So a few questions around that. Quite a few questions around your targeting system, kind of how your neediness situation inspection is conducted, how you managed to get it from 15 days to 1 minute, what data you're using and what targeting approach to determine eligibility, and how that has worked out to in a national database to be able to do that and then cater to local situations, and whether having a national ID is actually important to that registration and selection process, and how you deal with that. Are there people without national ID who can't get in? And in particular, that links to quite a few questions around refugees. Are refugees, we know there's an emergency in Turkey and quite a few other countries right now, if there's any way that you're catering to that with your system. And then moving on, one thing which Turkey is doing, which almost no other country is doing, is monitoring conditionalities, also kind of using your integrated data system. So people wanted to ask a few more questions around how that works in practice, and whether this data is being collected kind of on how often, well, is it periodically sent to you, and how that works. You haven't told us much yet about your M&E system and your reporting system, so it would be great if you could very briefly tell us about that, and of course about your case management, which is also very special within your system, and how that also links to any approaches to graduation. I know this is a lot. You might not be able in the next 15 minutes, but I'm just telling you these are the questions. If you don't manage to answer now, we will be answering all of these questions within our online community. So for all of you who are listening, it would be great if you could join us there later. One final interesting question I wanted to pose to you is whether you'd be willing to have other countries use your system, whether you think it would be cost effective for countries not start from scratch but actually use your system, that could, if it could be passed on to them or not, or if it's so specific to your situation that it's not givable to other countries. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to you now for answers.
Okay. Tamam, ben biraz soracağım. Okay, thank you very much, Valentina. I'm trying to answer some of the questions, but evet. As far as, but I guess there is a lot of, we have limited time. I try my best. Coordination for data sharing. At start, our Deputy Prime Minister responsible from our institution in the first hand handled the situation. If we have when we have some blocks in front of us, he called other high-ranking officers. Cevaplamaya devam ediyor muyum?
Ediyorsun. Ben sana şeyleri söyleyeyim. Biri eski
Not aldım ben. Not.
Tamam. Devam mı?
I think there is some question around our national identification numbers in the system. From birth, every Turkish citizen's ID number, and till that, also after that, this ID number in all of our governmental works. We have approximately 78 million population, but our Ministry of Interior gave about more than 3 million identification number. For example, my grandfather died, has passed away 20 years ago, but he also have ID number because my grandmother still lives, and she took his pension from Social Security institution. I think there is a question about data collection. Have some surveys. Yes, we couldn't show it, but during our household visits, our local workers have a specially designed survey, and filling this survey in the household. This survey includes some information for active labor market policies, some information about our case management system, some information about education status, also some information about disability situation. Maybe if we have opportunity, we can share this survey. If we take permission from our superiors, maybe we can share this survey in English format, so our attendees can investigate this. I think there's a question about Syrians. Yes, in Turkey we have a lot of Syrian refugees from also in other countries. Our system have open architecture for refugee assistances. Actually, there is a lot of Syrian refugees who are beneficiary from our CCT program, because our main law, social assistance law, allows us to make some social assistances to refugees in our country, but of course there is some limitations and there is some rules. We don't have enough time for answering for all questions, but I think I've done my best. Thank you very much for your attention. Şimdi şey yapıyorum. Sorry. Çağlar warned me. I think there was another questions. I know there is a lot of questions, but update of our data. Our home visits, our household visits, at least we are making at least once a year. But if there is a change in the situation of the family, we can make ad hoc household visits to beneficiaries. For example, for central queries, for central database information, from before every payment period, we are updating data from central databases. For example, for CCT payment, before the creation of the CCT payment list, our systems batches working, for example, during weekend or nights, and collecting data from Ministry of Education and Ministry of Interiors, Social Security institutions databases. Before every payment period, we are making these updates automatically. If, for example, if a system detects any changes in household situation, for example, our beneficiary can die, so we are checking. We have to check this information before every payment period. So I can easily say that we have very up-to-date system database. Also, our system can force our local offices. There is a problem, or there is some changes in this household. So you have to make some household visits. Go as soon as possible. Go to these houses and double check the real situation of this household. I think it's okay for me.
I wonder if there's some of the questions around your approach to targeting, and kind of whether each individual program has got its targeting criteria, or if this is done nationally and how. And the questions around M&E and reporting. Do you have a unified reporting system that you use also for policy making purposes?
Okay.
Sorry, very quickly. We will answer the rest of the questions on paper after the end of the seminar.
Yeah, we have our targeting approach is different. We have very different kind of social assistance program in Turkey. For example, for our some programs, social assistance programs, we have created not working informal sector, regular work, not to be registered in social security institution. Or we have some criteria for some disability status of our citizens. Also,
something etc.
Abi sen girince karışıyor kafam ya Çağlar. Yani hakikaten çok yorulduğum yapamıyorum ya. For actively, also our system have some actively reporting mechanisms. For example, for our superiors, or for our case management system, or for our local board of trustees, our system generates very information and reports using scoring formulas and other stuff. But for now we couldn't share them because the personal information limitations. But I prepare some case management, case referral information page here for you. For example, this is an information about the disability problem of our households, one of our households. This is the case number. This is the case type. This means disability problem. In this household there is a system. This means referrals are generated. This is information about the generation date. Şeyi nereye yönlendirdik? Özel bir şey çıkıyor mu? O zaman şey yapayım. Çıkmadı. We are directing, for example, these households to our municipalities and social workers, our ministries, professional social workers. I think it's this is the. If you have further questions, I think we will continue with via mail. Now I am turning to Valentina. Thank you for all again.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting, and it's very frustrating to only have 15 minutes to answer such a wide spectrum of questions. So we will really do our best to answer kind of within the online community over the next week or so. I want to finish today by thanking you all for participating and telling you that if you're interested to stay up to date on the topic of integrated data and information management for social protection, there's quite a lot you can do. You can join our online community on socialprotection.org, and the link is provided within the handouts which are included within the webinar materials. You have all of the presentations we had today there as well, so you can have a more in-depth look. You can follow socialprotection.org on social media, or you could follow myself or Richard on Twitter, kind of who tweet on these topics every now and then. And you can keep your ears open for the launch of our updated report, which we'll be launching with another webinar, hopefully in a couple of months' time. Thank you so much once again for joining our webinar. Thank you so much, Sindar and Chalar. That was fantastic of you to share your experience, inspiring for all of us, and hopefully it was useful to those of you who are listening today. We will try and have other webinars with other case studies over the coming months, so stay tuned. Bye everybody, and thanks again.